Now, we are not going to be talking about only PepsiCo Pakistan, but we are here to address the key challenges that agriculture sector is facing, especially when we are in a state of climate emergency. Agriculture remains the backbone of Pakistan's economy, although we are trying our level best to transition towards industrialization, but it's being supported by agriculture. Today's discussion, we are trying to integrate the stakeholders, which are from the public sector, from the private sector. It's a dialogue between public, private sector, development partners, and how we can join hands together to address the key challenges that the sector is facing, plus the solutions that private sector is providing and how their solutions can be scaled up. I'm truly honored to welcome the Federal Minister for National Food Security, Mr. Rana Tanveer Saab, who has joined us today. Please give him a round of applause, and to all the panelists here. I will introduce the panelists who have joined us together for this very important debate. The Federal Minister, Mr. Rana Tanveer Hussain Saab, Ministry of National Food Security and Research. Thank you so much for gracing the occasion and for showing your presence, and shows that how serious ministry is about this public-private partnership and to cater the issue that agriculture sector is facing. Thank you. We have been joined by Dr. Adil Najam. He is the professor and Dean Emeritus, Boston University, USA. Thank you so much, Dr. Adil Najam. Mr. Malik Amin Aslam, former Federal Minister, Climate Change, and an environmentalist himself before becoming a minister. Thank you. Ms. Khalda Bashir, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Climate Change and Environment Coordination. Thank you, Ms. Khalda. We have Mr. Hasib Malik, Director Supply Chain, PepsiCo Pakistan, and Dr. Abid Qayyum Suleri, Executive Director, STPI and Member, International Advisory Committee, COP29. Without further ado, I'd start directly with Mr. Amin Aslam, especially because you have extensive experience. You have been part of the government as well. You have been engaging with the development partners. So having worked extensively in climate and environmental policy, what are some regulatory barriers that you feel need to be addressed for sustainable agriculture to thrive in Pakistan? Thank you. Sir, are you comfortable here or sure?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable Chief Guest, Rana Tanveer Saab, Abid Suleri Saab, Adil Najam Saab, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to first of all thank STPI for not only convening this conference, but for inviting me over here to address this August gathering. Before I get on to the agriculture climate nexus, when I was reading the topic of this conference, from fragility to resilience, I think my own personal view is that it does not apply to Pakistan, because Pakistan has never been a fragile country. It's a country which is very unique because it was born out of adversity and it was born out of resilience. In 1947, when Pakistan got its independence, we faced one of the worst human migrations ever in world history, and we went through that. We've seen in 1979 another influx of huge refugee population, almost a whole country come down from Afghanistan and land in Pakistan, and we welcome them with open hands. It's a country which is 19th on the earthquake risk list, and we faced one of the worst earthquakes in 2005, in which almost 3.5 million people in this country got displaced, but yet we passed through it. It's also a country which has, since its independence, faced 5 wars. We've had 3 wars with our neighbor, and we've been on the forefront of 2 global wars, the Russian war and then the war against terror. So I don't think there's any other country in the world if you look at the last 70 years, which has been through these whole tumultuous events. It's also a country that faced the COVID pandemic in probably the best way possible. We refused to lock down when the world had locked down. We refused to take that pressure. And we went through the COVID experience with one of the best strategies, which was acclaimed all over the world. Because that was the time when our industry actually grew. And from an environmental perspective, we were the only country which came out with a green stimulus package that was unrolled out during the COVID time. Now, with this background, I think that we are not a country which has ever been in a situation of fragility. We've always been faced with challenges, some of them man-made, others nature-based, but we have faced them with a lot of resilience. And I think I was just reading a UNDP document which was brought out in, I think, 2020. And the caption of that was mastering resilience, learning from Pakistan. So I think the world has got a lot to learn from us in terms of resilience. But now we are faced with this huge tumultuous problem called climate change. The weather is changing, the climate is changing, and it is not because of our own fault. We are, even today, less than 1% of the global carbon emissions. Yet we have been a country which has been continuously impacted by climate change. Ever since the world's weather started doing these crazy things, Pakistan has been affected on the front line. This is a documented fact that we are amongst the top 3 continuously impacted countries. There are 3 countries of the world which, if you look at the vulnerability index on climate change, they have been continuously on the top 10 list. And Pakistan shares the top 3 on that list with Haiti and the Philippines. But this is throwing a new challenge to a very resilient country. And this is the challenge that we have to now think about how do we cope with this challenge, because it's got effects going all over the country. And when we talk of agriculture, I think there can be no climate resilience in Pakistan without having agriculture resilience. And the reason is very simple. Climate is changing 2 things. It's changing the temperature pattern, it's changing the rainfall patterns all over the world, and so in Pakistan. And these are the 2 factors which directly impact agriculture. Agriculture, our minister is here, is almost 25% of our national GDP. It is the biggest employer in Pakistan. 42% of our labor force is employed in the agriculture sector, most of them women, almost 70% of them women. So this is impacted when the temperature changes or the rainfall changes. And both these changes are taking place in Pakistan. On the temperature side, we've seen, the hottest place in the world being in Pakistan for 2-3 years in Jacobabad. There was a report that came out from the World Bank which identified the global hotspots of temperature rise. What are the places where temperature is going to rise so much that they will become unlivable? Unfortunately, almost 18 of those happen to be in Pakistan. And along those cities, there are 18 cities which are on that list. And they include big cities in Pakistan. Along those cities, we also have the agricultural land, which is going to be facing serious situation of drought with the spikes in temperature that we are seeing now. The heat waves that have been happening in Pakistan have been worse than anywhere else. And they affect directly our agriculture and our ability to produce. On the second side, climate is impacting our rainfall patterns. And we've seen again that these rainfall shifts in our monsoon patterns are having a direct impact on our economy and on our agriculture. The 2022 super floods that happened were very unique because they happened for the first time because of rainfall. It wasn't the glaciers melting in the north which are happening that usually produce the floods. In 2022, the floods happened because of a cloud burst through the monsoons coming from the south. So this was a new phenomena that we are facing. And such new phenomena are going to continue to occur in Pakistan. And that is why we need to be ready and prepared to deal with it. The challenges are huge, but I think the solutions are out there. It's not rocket science. People have learned all over the world how to cope with these challenges. And I think we need to do that also. The answer lies in what they call climate smart agriculture. Very simply put, it is how you use your water, how you do your tilling, which seeds do you plant, and all of them combine to create an agriculture pattern which is in tune with the changes of the climate. In Pakistan, we need to store our water better. Unfortunately, we're not storing our water at the moment. The storage percentage of the water that is bestowed upon Pakistan is only 9%. We get a lot of water every year, and it comes in a 100-day period when we have the monsoons coming from the south and the glaciers melting in the north. And a large amount of this water, almost 35 million acre feet, is flushed down the Indus into the Arabian Sea. We need to conserve that. We need to use that, store it. The world average is 40%. So, if it's a glass of water and the world gets it, it saves 40% of that water. We only save 9% of it. So we need to increase that if we are to cope with climate change. Similarly, we need to conserve the water that we have. And the techniques to do that, drip irrigation, laser leveling, all of these are out there. We need to employ them better so that we get out of the flood irrigation syndrome that we are in and start conserving the water that we have for agriculture if we are to survive climate change. Similarly, the seed technology in Pakistan needs to be improved so that it is adaptive to the changes of climate. It has to be drought resistant, it has to be temperature resistant, it has to change the pattern of seeding that is done in Pakistan. Right now we're in the start of November, still not cold. I mean, I'm comfortable in a t-shirt right now. This never used to be the case. So the wheat sowing that is going on right now probably has to be shifted forward because the pattern of the climate has changed in Pakistan. There needs to be proper research-driven, data-driven decisions taken on that. So all of these things need to happen in Pakistan if we are to go through this challenge of climate change. We need to store our grains better. I was shocked to see a report recently which stated that we lose almost 40% of the grain that is produced in Pakistan. It does not get from the farm land to the plate, consumer plate. 40%. That is a huge, humongous number. And the solution is to have proper silos. Most of it gets rotted in silos which are not designed properly to be, storing this. Egypt has changed all of their storage capacity because of the climate change issue, so that every grain that is produced counts and gets to the table of the consumer. So we need to start saving this 40%. And there, as I said, the technology and the way to do it is out there. Finally, what I would like to say is that all of these ideas are out there. Climate change is not going anywhere. We are going to be continuing to face it. And we are a resilient nation, as I've said in my start. But we need to have the policies to make sure that whatever is happening on the climate front is also understood by our agriculture ministries, by the people, by the farmers. And we need to, make that happen very quickly. All of this is going to happen if we get the right financing in place. There are some very good projects that have come up. There's a climate smart agriculture project going on in 17 districts of Pakistan, given by the GCF. I've just met yesterday some people from NRSP, and they said that another project on innovative agriculture practices, a fund of $50 million has been recently approved last week, which will provide this funding to innovative practices to young entrepreneurs. So that needs to be expedited, and inshallah, if all of that happens, as I said, we are a resilient nation. We have never been fragile, and I hope we never become fragile. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for a very comprehensive debate around climate action and your extensive experience. Indeed, the recommendations that you're proposing, climate smart agriculture is the key. I would now like to request Dr. Abid Suleri to formally welcome the minister and also to share your remarks, as his expertise is also around food security. That's another cap that he wears apart from so many other caps. Dr. Suleri, over to you, please.
Thank you, Zainab. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry for jumping the queue or perhaps disturbing the order, but I know Minister Saab has other commitments. First of all, I wanted to pay my deepest gratitude to him and that he could manage to join us. So this is our 27th edition of our annual conference, 4 days conference that started from Monday. And right now, simultaneously in the upper hall and here, we are having 2 parallel plenaries. The theme this year, and of course an expo as well. The theme this year is about fragility to resilience. And we can see that despite all odds that challenged the world and region and Pakistan during last year, we are still thriving and we emerged as a resilient nation. The 3 important things that we were discussing in this conference, one is environment and climate change. How is it it's impacting our lives, our food security, our economies, our industrial production, everything. The second is about energy and climate financing. Can we continue to do the things which brought us here, the climate change, and the latest manifestation is what is happening in Spain. What happened in Spain last week, where we had this flash flood that took around 250 lives, and there's still people that are missing. And the third is economy, economic resilience. And we are not only mourning mourning about what happened, we are trying to look forward to what can give us resilience in these difficult times. And when it comes to agriculture, I think the 2 important subjects that directly falls under your mandates, one is food security and the other is industry. So we are talking of use of innovation and technology and industrial improvement so that agriculture can be made climate resilient. One can have opinions about green revolution, its negative impacts on climate, environment, especially the use of pesticide and use of fertilizer. But then if one looks back at the hindsight, that was one of the solutions available to save the region from famines. So these high yielding varieties, at least they save the region from famine and from hunger. Today, the agriculture is being challenged by climate change. And one of the solutions that comes in mind is use of innovation like climate smart agriculture, like the drone technology, like the laser technology, like various other, the same multispectral drone that can tell us about landmines, can tell us about the humidity and the pH level and the fertility level, etc. for the soil. And the same drone that can drop, can be used in wars, is being used to apply pesticides and to monitor the crops, especially the tall crops, sugarcane and maize. So it's about innovation. The second important thing is about public-private partnership. And this very plenary, we are organizing it with PepsiCo, and we are thankful to PepsiCo for joining hands with us for this very plenary. So for years, we have been considering private sector as part of problem, and we kept them away. Now, I think in the context of climate change, especially, we need to turn them as part of solution. So if we just push them away because they are part of problem, I think the problem would be aggravated. We need to take private sector along so that private sector can be now part of solution, and that's where public-private partnership, it becomes very important. Not only the government and corporate sector and the private sector, but also government, civil society, and private sector. And so my third and final point, and then of course we will love to hear from you. That is about strengthening and empowering our farming communities. So you belong to a farming family. I come from a periphery, a village, and we know that at least in Punjab, we don't do agriculture because it's a business or it's a profitable industry. We do it because that is our social prestige. Anyone in rural area who has a small tract of land, that is a stigma for him or her to go and buy the atta from market. It means that belonging to a farming family and going to the market and getting your atta, it's a huge stigma. And that stigma actually keeps farmers that they keep their sleeves rolled up and they keep on doing it with using their own indigenous solution, spending and investing their own indigenous savings. And sir, through your good offices, we want to combine the three: innovation, public-private partnership, and how we can learn from farmers, tell them what they don't know, and then strengthen their resilience so that the food security, which is dependent on them, that can continue. Very last sentence, sir, and people, they often ask me in TV shows that last year when we were at the brinks of default, why we didn't see the situation like what happened in Sri Lanka. And I keep telling them that Sri Lanka is a net food importing country. If Pakistan was a net food importing country, God forbid, our situation could have been far worse. But it's our farmers who has shown their resilience. And despite all odds, be it climate change, be it economic or any other, because we can have our own dal, roti, chawal and doodh. I think that is something that keeps this society up and moving, and that is the way forward, where your ministries can support the farming community as well as the private sector. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. I understand that Minister Saab needs to leave for another meeting. So I'd request you to share your remarks, and then I'll move towards other panelists for the Q&A. Over to you, sir. Please welcome Federal Minister for National Food Security and Research, dear audience. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Slurry Saab, Amin Aslam Saab, and all who are present here. I am honored to address this house. The people who have more knowledge than me about the agriculture. No doubt I belong to farmer community, but still I think I am not a specialist. I am traditional farmer. So, but I feel some agony or pinch when I see the condition of agriculture sector of Pakistan. The discussion today is the subject of this discussion is very close to my heart because I want progress in agriculture sector. Because the agriculture sector is very important Pakistan economy, and food security is very essential for people of Pakistan. And food security is a big challenge in these days for the world. So when I say that the agriculture sector is very important for our country, this sector is very important for our economy. And 25%, it's the backbone of agriculture sector, backbone of our economy. So contributing 24% in GDP and 37.4% in employment. But agriculture sector is experience the severe impacts of shifting weather patterns, unpredictable rainfall, and an increase in the frequency of extreme climate events. Pakistan is ranked as the 5th most vulnerable country to the climate change, even though the share of contribution of Pakistan in terms of emissions is far less as compared to other developed and developing countries. As the main stakeholders of agriculture sector, Ministry of National Food Security and Research have a clear and urgent responsibility. Our task, therefore, is to reimagine and redesign our agriculture practices to not only adopt our current challenges, but to build resilience for generations to come. Water is the lifeblood of agriculture, yet our farmers are face significant water scarcity exacerbated by erratic rainfall and over-reliance on traditional irrigation practices. To address this, our ministry is committed to adopting two-pronged approach, conservation and innovation. By promoting efficient irrigation systems and encouraging the use of water-saving technologies, we can significantly reduce water uses. Currently, a project under PSDP is ongoing titled National Program for Water Courses in Pakistan Phase 2. Total cost rupees 47,175 million and PSDP allocation rupees 2,000 million. This project will improve productive irrigation water through efficient conveyance and effective farm level use by adopting water conservation techniques, which will increase agriculture production and more employment opportunities in rural areas. The objective of this project is to conserve land and water resources through various interventions by supplemental irrigation, livestock, farm, forestry, and fish farming to increase cropping intensity and water productivity. To enhance resilient climate resilient crops, our scientific community and agriculture research institutions are working tirelessly to develop climate resilient seed varieties. These crops are not only drought resistant, but also able to thrive in soils that may be less fertile due to changing climate conditions. Under PSDP, establishment of consumer sourcing seed authenticity system and strengthening of labs of FSC and RD with the allocation of rupees 210 millions and establishment of seed certification laboratory at Khuzdar and Turbat, rupees 276.950 million, are contributing effectively. We are also exploring traditional seed varieties known for their resilience, combining modern science with time-tested agriculture wisdom. The Variety Evaluation Committee of the PRC during the current year has approved 10 high-yielding pulses varieties to boost the output of pulses in the country and reduce the reliance on important leguminous vegetables. Building early warning system and data-driven decisions, the Ministry of National Food Security and Research has prioritized the establishment of an early warning system capable of predicting upcoming crop production and yield with accuracy and timeliness. Currently, Ministry of National Food Security and Research has an in-house system that helps the policymakers by giving the accurate model-based estimates and warning regarding the shortfalls. It is also important to utilize the technologies like satellite imaging and geographic information system. The vision for a climate resilient agriculture sector cannot be achieved in isolation. We are actively engaging with local communities, private sector stakeholders, international organizations, and NGOs to form partnerships that amplify our impact. By partnering with international research organizations, we aim to provide our farmers with seeds that ensure high yields, stability, and resilience against climate change induced challenges. PRC and the Korea Partnership for Innovation of Agriculture has launched a collaborative initiative for seed potato production in Pakistan using advanced aeroponics technology and established a seed potato complex to produce virus-free potatoes and enhance local crop output. Finally, the ministry is committed to integrating climate resilience into our agriculture policies by revising land use policies, supporting climate-smart subsidies, and incentivizing sustainable practices. We aim to create a policy landscape that nurtures a climate resilience agriculture economy. These reforms will not only address the current challenges, but also provide a solid foundation of sustainable agriculture growth in the years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change poses an unprecedented challenges, but it also presents an opportunity for innovation and transformation. The Ministry of National Food Security and Research, Pakistan, is dedicated to taking bold, proactive steps to build a resilient agriculture sector that can weather the storms ahead. With these pioneering solutions, we can support our farmers, protect our natural resources, and secure a sustainable secure future for our country. Let us continue working together in this endeavor, united by our shared responsibility to protect our agriculture heritage and our commitment to a resilient and prosperous Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So before the minister leaves, may I please request everyone to please gather here for the group photo. PepsiCo team, if you can join us. Mr. Khurram Shah, please join us for the group photo. And may I please request the photographers to take the group photo before the minister leaves. Thank you. So, may I please request the panelists to take seats? Now, this is my favorite part where I can ask the questions and through which I love to extract information. So I think this is one of the most important plenary sessions. I have conducted so many sessions, but this is the only plenary session that I'm conducting, high-level policy plenary session. I'll start with Dr. Adil Najam. Hope now that's fine. So, Dr. Adil Najam, based on your extensive experience, you have been working with development partners, you have been working with regulators as well in this sector. Do you think the agriculture sector in Pakistan, it can adapt to climate change? Do you think we have the capacities to do that? And I want your response in pure Adil Najam style, signature style. Thank you.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you very much. I hope you people can hear me. I know कि वहाँ से echo थी यहाँ, but I hope people can hear me. If not, तो आप please सो जाएं. कोई you won't lose much. कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. तो जहाँ तक आपका सवाल है कि are we capable or are we ready or capable to it? आप ready हो या ना हो, climate तैयारी. अगर रेडी होना चाहते हैं तो हो जाए, नहीं होना चाहते तो आप सो जाएं, उससे भी कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. बट आई से दिस वेरी सीरियसली. सो लेट मी से इट इन टू वेज. Let me first be positive and then I'll come to my trucky batti. Yesterday I had quoted some research that I had been part of with colleagues in 2015. I was then at LUMS as the Vice Chancellor. This is the only piece of research we did, but I'm very proud of it. The method was rather preliminary, lekin the findings were interesting. So ye 2015 ki research hai, and a lot has changed that, including on climate. But at that point, we said that if climate change happens, knowing what the models are and what we know about climate change, uska agriculture pe kya asar padega. And we looked essentially at southern Punjab and upper Sindh. Southern Punjab mein we looked at cotton and wheat, and upper Sindh mein we looked at cotton, wheat, and rice. And we said कि जी अगर climate change होती है तो within a 50-year period, what are the type of impacts on productivity, only on productivity, and what are the difference on those who are adapting and those who are not. Adapting का मतलब है they are using water better, they are using fertilizer better, they are using pesticides better. Non-adapting is कि जो who are not doing those things. The bottom line result was the following, कि 8% to 10% loss in productivity for cotton, wheat, and rice. Right? 10%, 8% जो है is basically your entire profit margin. Right? So that is very huge. And if you start thinking, if you were right कि 40% of the GDP is that, तो 40% का आप जब 10% निकाल देते हैं तो 4% और चला जाता है. Right? So that's significant. That was not the interesting part of the research, whether we are ready or not. The interesting part was the second. कि if those who are not adapting, those farmers who are not doing the right thing now, if they in fact simply do the right climate adaptation, which is mostly water management and chemical management, then in that case, now listen to this carefully, 52% increase in cotton productivity, 52. ये फिर सोच लें, 52% increase in cotton productivity and 49% increase in wheat, nearly no difference in rice, because rice basically is water. आप basically पानी ले रहे हैं और उससे rice बना रहे हैं. Right? Now, what this means is that there is a lot of scope, there is a lot of capacity. लेकिन करने वाला भी तो कोई हो ना. Now, with all due respect, I do not sense either the urgency or even the desire to do anything. With all due respect, the energy level in this room tells you that. कल मैंने जिक्र किया था, and I mean with due respect, अच्छा है कि आबिद नहीं है. कल I talked about truck की बत्ती, and I had mentioned these 4 or 5 truck की बत्तीज जिनसे हमें ख्याल रखना चाहिए. One of which is climate finance, another of which is AI, a third of which is digital, things that are in fact right. Truck की बत्ती ये होती है, truck सही जगह जा रहा होता है, आप जो उसके पीछे जा रहे होते हैं ना, thinking कि ये उधर ही जा रहा है जहां मैंने जाना है, कसूर तो उसका होता है ना truck की बत्ती में. So things that we can learn from, but we can also make serious mistakes if we just do जो नाराबाजी है या what others are saying, where we are not making it a desi problem. लेकिन ज़ैनब ट्रक की एक और बत्ती होती है. And today I want to talk about the truck की अदर बत्ती. वो जो ट्रक की बत्ती होती है वो उसके पीछे वाली होती है लाल बत्ती. लेकिन एक ट्रक के सामने बत्ती होती है जो सफेद होती है. And that is the truck that is coming at you. Climate change, as Amin Aslam pointed out, is the truck ki batti that is coming at you. It is not going to get out of the way, whether you are prepared or not prepared. I, with all due respect, think we should stop doing or at least reduce this narrative कि जी हमने climate produce नहीं की. That is true. But it gives the impression as if it is not our masla. चाहे हमने climate create की हो या ना की हो, the truck is coming. Right? It comes in the floods of 22, it comes in the floods of 2010. When the flood comes, you can't tell the flood जिसका घर जा रहा है वो ये नहीं उसको कहता है कि यार नहीं मैंने नहीं प्रोड्यूस किया ये असल में अमेरिका है तुम अमेरिका चले जाओ. That's not how it happens. The truck comes and tha. And I unfortunately fear that in many sectors, including agriculture, we are sleepwalking into this truck ki batti unless we take it serious. So what I've tried to say here is there is a huge potential, but potentials do not realize themselves by simply having the potential. Something has to be done. And that something requires an earnestness that I do not always see in the situation. I hope I have not, this is not a depressing thing. The reason मैं एक अगर मुझे इजाजत दें, especially since there are wonderful people sitting here and I do want to make this, the reason I sometimes worry कि this 1% वाला जो हमारा एक narrative है, it is true कि Pakistan only contributes 1%. लेकिन when we say that, we seem to think that that means कि we do very little production. So दुनिया में 200 मुल्क हैं. अगर हर मुल्क बराबर प्रोड्यूस करे तो every country will do only 5.5%. अगर हम अपनी population के लिहाज से प्रोड्यूस करें तो of all the emission that goes out, then we should be about 3%, which means that yes, we are low, but we are not that low. If you look at the countries that are producing even per capita emissions, we are in fact not at the bottom of the list. There are some Pakistanis who produce very little. There are some Pakistanis, those who are sitting in this room, certainly myself, who in fact produce a lot of carbon with very little production. So what I'm saying is that if we are taking climate seriously, मुझे डर सिर्फ इससे ये होता है कि it kind of gives us the sense, it gives people the sense कि यार ये हमारा मसला नहीं है, कि वो जो truck सामने से आ रहा है, that is not our truck, it is someone else's truck. My only point is कि whether you like it or not, this is coming. The world will be divided between smart people and not smart people. Smart people will be those who will use the opportunity of the 52% gain, and the not smart people will be the one who will be rolled over by the truck.
Energy is there, Dr. Saab. Thank you, Dr. Adil Najam. I think you always give a thought-provoking, sense to the audience. And आप हमेशा एक question mind में छोड़ जाते हैं कि debate वहाँ खत्म नहीं होती, वो बल्कि और debate शुरू हो जाती है. I'll get back with another question, but हसीब, मुझे पता है कि आपका प्राइवेट सेक्टर नरेटिव बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, बट हमारे पास मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज मौजूद है, एंड वी डू रियलाइज द फैक्ट दैट COP29 इज अराउंड द कॉर्नर, एंड how role of private sector, then Pakistan is also going to be revising its NDCs. NDCs 3.0 will be coming soon, and then we have to submit it. But where is the role of private sector? So for that, Ministry representative is here with us today, and I'm really grateful to you, Madam Ma'am Khalda Bashir Saiba, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Climate Change, for agreeing to, be part of this debate, because so many others did not join us. I don't know why they don't take it seriously, or maybe they don't consider agriculture as another important aspect that we need to focus on and that we need to prioritize now when we're talking about the climate debate. So, Ms. Khalda, my question from you is, public-private partnerships are often crucial for impactful development work. From the Ministry of Climate Change perspective, how can international organizations, governments, but again, I reshape it, how can local private sector, government, and development partners can collaborate effectively to adapt, especially for the agriculture sector? Your comments, ma'am, please.
Yeah, working, right? Thank you, Zainab. First of all, you have made me sit right next to Dr. Saab, and I'm already feeling very nervous about it. Before I go on to your question, one thing, the question that you asked in the beginning, that are we ready for it? Then my counter question would be, do we have a choice? We don't have a choice. Like it or not, it's there. And I totally agree with Dr. Saab when we say that, we sort of, we tend to gloat about the fact that we are not the biggest emitters and, we are less than 1%. And then, we also beat the trumpet that we are in the first 10 vulnerable countries. But you see, that does not exempt us from taking any action, or that does not give us that, that safe hiding place that, okay, fine, because we're not doing anything, so let's not worry about it, at least not in the near future. But unfortunately, that is not the case. Like it or not, it's here. And it is something without geographical borders, right? So no matter how much you say, because so this is one thing which I keep on hearing, I think maybe 1,000 times a day, because I work in the ministry, and we start each of a narrative with the same one sentence. That is a fact, right? But then sitting in the ministry, working at the policy level, we do not have a choice. We have to do something, and we have to do something really fast. Now, if you talk about the public-private partnership, that is very, very important, especially in this context, when the public finance is shrinking. For instance, we deal with the Global Environmental Facility, we deal with GCF, that is the Green Climate Fund. And right now, the thrust is mostly on loans, on some sort of an equity, not on grants. You see, so the question which arises out of this is that under the umbrella of getting finances for climate, are we also increasing our debt burden? You see, so we keep on discussing this question. Now, the development partners are there, right? But there is, as you say, there is many a slip between the cup and the lip, because actually dealing with that, the development partners is very tricky, in the sense that it's not as if the money is there for our taking. No, we have to go through rigorous procedures. And just to give you an example, the GCF, sir, we have only 2 accredited entities in Pakistan, the JS Bank and the NRSP. And we have around, I think, 9 entities, if I'm not mistaken, in line. And the cases have been pending with the GCF for the past 2 years, if I'm not wrong. And we do not know where the fate lies, right? So this is one thing that you have to look at. And then again, the role of private sector is very, very important. It cannot be stressed enough, because you see, this is a common issue. This is not for the government to take a decision. This is not for the private sector. It is for the entire nation. And coming out, not coming out, actually dealing with this problem is a mammoth of a thing, because there are so many issues involved. And yes, the ministry, the government does need the private sector to pitch in and do its bit. And on the other hand, the thing that comes across is that I'm a businessman. If I am willing to co-opt with the government to to undertake certain projects relating to climate change, so what is it I'm going to get? See, so sitting in the government, we need to be very, very vocal, energetic, to pitch our ideas to attract the private sector. And sir, as far as the energy is concerned, a little bit on that. You see, there are gaps, and the gaps are that there is some very good work being done by our students, by our academics. but it does not translate into the policy. Like just last month, we have this project on carbon markets, and there they have two students from Pakistan. They are working on Article 6 of Paris Agreement, and UNEP CCC is paying them $3,000 for an internship. So you see, that sort of awareness is there, that sensitivity is also there. But then it all comes down to what to do. We keep on, talking about high objectives and high moral ground and lots of, fancy language. But then at the end of the day, what are we getting? Are we actually sitting down and doing something practical? Are we getting something really out of it? That is $1 million question. So you see, that is one of the challenges that we face. And in order to translate that policy into the actual implementation and the actual work on ground, that is the biggest challenge, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Falda. And yes, public-private partnerships are very important. But I think there's a lot of work that's being done in silos, even by the public sector and by the private sector. There's a lot of good work happening. As Dr. Suleri said, that we have been considering private sector as not part of the solution, and we haven't been thinking about it lately. But now we have to, as we have a leave no one behind agenda. But even if that agenda is not there, the key to strengthen climate action is through public-private partnerships. And we did see that when we had floods 2022, during these floods, there were no international finance was very limited. It was the local financing by the local humanitarian private organizations and private sector that supported the communities. International financing came quite late. So I think in that context, Haseeb, I know you're the last speaker, but I'll be asking other panelists for one last question also after Haseeb. I would like you to represent the case of a private sector in Pakistan and also in context of agriculture. What I know there are technical questions that I have to ask you, but why I'm insisting on this, that you're going to be presenting private sector case and you're going to be presenting it as part of the solution for all the public sector representatives, development partners, and all others sitting here, that we have the capacities, we have the potential, and our solutions can be scaled up. If we are providing solutions as private sector, then we are going to align public sector to, take your solutions and make it scalable. So that's why I want your perspective as a private sector representative.
Sure, Zainab. So first of all, thank you so much. Really appreciate organizing this entire conference. There's some very interesting comments made by the honorable participants here. And I think generally what PepsiCo is known for is its iconic brands, which the consumers use and they love. But what's less known is the relationship of PepsiCo with the agriculture sector. And there's very deep-rooted relationship that we have in the agriculture space. There are three main value chains which we work on, starting from potato, then maize, and then sugar. And we're very proud to share that all of that is 100% locally sourced within Pakistan. And when I talk about local sourcing, one of the most important aspects, which was discussed earlier as well, is the quality of seed that comes in. And how do we bring that in? We are one of the first organizations who has done a very large-sized tissue culture lab in Pakistan, where we are now vertically integrated when it comes to potato production. So we are producing our own seed right from the start, which is the first step, tissue culture. And within that, there is a next step, which is called the greenhouse. That is where we are converting those plantlets that we produce into a mini tuber. And then those mini tubers are going to our farming partners outside in Pakistan so that we can produce the entire seed locally first, and then eventually consume it for the products that we make. So that's the first step. The second thing that is very important to us is that while we discussed water, the scarcity of water, we are one of the organizations who's incentivizing high efficiency irrigation system. And while the usage is very low in Pakistan, if I look at the entire national landscape, it's hardly 0.1% where we use high efficiency irrigation system. Within PepsiCo, we are currently at 10% of our area that we cultivate with our farming partners. And that is where it gives us a lot of pride in sharing that we are able to reduce the national consumption. Roughly 40% of national freshwater consumption is in agriculture. And from 2015 onwards, the kind of efforts that we were able to do, we have been able to improve our water use efficiency by 25% so far. And these are all externally audited numbers. We are not making those numbers up. So as you mentioned, there are a lot of possibilities that are still there. There's a lot of effort that comes with it in order to ensure that the farming community that we operate in are also ready to adapt, because adaptation is one of the biggest challenge that we foresee. Similarly, we also know very well that the community, the people who are involved in farming in Pakistan are very important. Malik Saab mentioned a number on labor and then the female representation in that labor. It's close to 70% in agriculture. Now, when we talk about those females, they are less privileged females because they are more of farm workforce and not the farmers themselves. And that farm workforce is in the need of a lot of basic necessities in life. So we are providing that basic access to resources like clean drinking water, like health and hygiene, like basic necessity like a regular washroom. These are the kind of interventions that we have done on the farms where we work with the farming partners. Also, we are very sure about the fact that we won't be able to do everything ourselves. And that is why we're working with some multilateral non-profit organizations, and we have some very good flagship programs and projects that we are working on. For example, Global Development Alliances, She Feeds the World, and Access to Safe Water are some of the projects that we have done in the communities that we operate in to ensure that the basic facilities are available to the farming partners. We very well know and understand that if the farming community is not successful, we as a business cannot be successful for sure. And that is why we make all the effort to make sure that all the right interventions are made to create the right ecosystem and a resilient food system in the process. We have a responsibility, but at the same time, we have an opportunity as well. And that is where we are very clear that we will be able to create a positive change for the planet and the people that we are working with.
Thank you very much, Haseeb. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, ये सिर्फ बता नहीं रहे, ये हो रहा है, आप देख सकते हैं। और ये कैसे हो रहा है, बाहर इनका बूथ लगा हुआ है पेप्सिको का, उस पे इनकी पूरी एग्री जर्नी ये दिखा रहे हैं। जो STPI इस साल एक्सपो कर रहा है, उसमें पेप्सिको और बाकी MNCs को हमने इसलिए बुलाया कि वो आपको वो काम दिखा सकें जो कि एक्चुअली पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट क्रिएट कर रहा है। एंड दिस इज नॉट ग्रीन वॉशिंग. I am an environmentalist myself. I can only vouch for those initiatives that are purely, creating a good impact. So I would never support anything that can be, जिसका कुछ नहीं impact और वो सिर्फ बस हाँ marketing है और ये सब ऐसा नहीं है. आप कुछ MNCs हमें जब support कर रहे होते हैं, मुल्क में जो community impact create कर रहे हैं, हमें भी चाहिए कि हम उनके वो initiatives देखें ताकि government और प्राइवेट सेक्टर जहाँ पे साइलोज में काम कर रहे हैं वहाँ हम ये देख सकें एज अ थिंक टैंक कि कहाँ हम इनको इंटीग्रेट कर सकते हैं. और इसी चीज को देखते हुए अमीन असलम साहब, मेरा आपसे नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन है और मैं आप चाहूंगी कि आप इस पे हमें गाइड करें, क्योंकि आप अभी भी बहुत ज्यादा काम कर रहे हैं विद different partners on bringing the kind of right projects in Pakistan, and you have been raising your voice around climate. You have been very vocal around different things even when you were at COP last time जब आप government में थे तो बहुत अच्छे initiatives आए. अभी पाकिस्तान COP पे जा रहा है और प्राइवेट सेक्टर के हमारे बहुत अच्छे इनिशिएटिव्स भी हैं. हम किस तरह से वो इनिशिएटिव्स अलाइन कर सकते हैं अपने क्लाइमेट एजेंडा के साथ? आपके इस पे क्या टेक है? On है sir.
थैंक यू जी। देखें, एक तो जो अभी कॉप हो रहा है, ये मैं आदिल से भी डिस्कस कर रहा था, ये कोई इतना मॉन्यूमेंटल कॉप लग नहीं रहा, क्योंकि देर इज नथिंग रियली सब्सटेंशियल ऑन द एजेंडा। और फिर ये जो आज यूएस इलेक्शन हुआ है, इसमें जो चेंज आया है, उसमें उसका भी इम्पैक्ट होगा इस कॉप के ऊपर। इट्स नॉट अ पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट। बाकी आई थिंक द ओनली थिंग दैट इज गोइंग टू हैपन ओवर देयर इज क्वेश्चन दैट यू आस्क्ड, कि प्राइवेट सेक्टर जो वहाँ पर आउटसाइड ऑफ द कॉप मुलाकातें होती हैं, क्योंकि देयर आर लॉट ऑफ सोल्यूशन प्रोवाइडर्स ओवर देयर, पीपल हु हैव डन देयर इनोवेशन, हु नो what the answers to your solutions are, problems are, तो वो उनके साथ मैच अप करने के लिए आई थिंक प्राइवेट सेक्टर पार्टिसिपेशन पाकिस्तान से जितनी ज़्यादा होगा उतना उसका में फ़ायदा होगा। But I would also like to add on to what our friend Naseeb from Pepsi just said. That is one of the models of a solution जो climate change में public private partnership से हम आगे देख सकते हैं, because I've lived through it. I've been a grower with Pepsi on my farm. हमने इनके लिए आलू उगाते रहे थे। अब उसके अंदर इन्होंने 2-3 चीज़ें की जो कि फार्मर्स के लिए एक आई थिंक लाइफ चेंजिंग थी। एक ये था कि जो रिस्क ऑफ द प्रोड्यूस नॉट सेलिंग एट द राइट प्राइस, वो उन्होंने अपने सिर पे ले लिया। पाकिस्तान में प्रॉब्लम ये होती है कि पाकिस्तान में वी फेस द क्राइसिस ऑफ प्लेंटी इन द एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर फॉर नंबर ऑफ क्रॉप्स। अभी आपने वीट में देखा कि लोगों ने वीट उगाई, एक प्राइस सिग्नल मार्केट में दिया गया, और फिर वो वीट जब उग गई तो उसके बाद वो प्राइस सिग्नल चेंज कर दिया गया, और वो जो वीट लोगों की थी वो पड़ी रही। वो ग्रेन जो कि पाकिस्तान का था वो उनसे खरीदा नहीं गया, और उसकी वजह से नुकसान हुआ मुल्क को। इसी तरह आलू की फसल में भी पाकिस्तान में यही प्रॉब्लम हमेशा रही कि एक सिक्लिकल क्रॉप है जिसमें प्राइस कई बार आपको बहुत अच्छी मिल जाती है, आपका छिक्का लग जाता है, एंड अदर टाइम्स you are left with a crop which can't sell in the market. So Pepsi came into the market and they said, okay, we will give you our seeds, we will give you our fertilizers, we will sort of subsidize the pesticide and give you proper pesticide, ताकि वो 2 नंबर ना हो। एक तो ये प्रॉब्लम थी। दूसरा उन्होंने ये कहा कि हम आपकी प्रोड्यूस एक फिक्स प्राइस पे खरीद लेंगे आपसे, अगर आप हमें वो प्रोड्यूस करके दे दें, एंड दैट took care of a major problem for the farmer. इसी तरह जब आप इस किस्म के सिग्नल्स मार्केट में देते हैं, और जब प्राइवेट सेक्टर के प्लेयर्स आते हैं, जो आदिल ने बात की कि ट्रक की बत्ती आगे से जो आ रही है, बिल्कुल आई थिंक पाकिस्तान, मैंने जो रेजिलियंस की बात की वो यही थी कि पाकिस्तान अगली ट्रक की बत्ती को सबसे बेहतर फेस कर सकता है, बिकॉज एज लॉन्ग एज वी हैव ड्रिवन ऑन जीटी रोड, वी नो कि अगली ट्रक की बत्ती से कैसे फेस करना है, बिकॉज इट्स लाइक अ मैच ओवर देयर। तो लेकिन उसमें ज़रूरी ये है कि आपके पास टूल्स हों, आपके पास कुछ सॉल्यूशंस हों जो कि आप अडॉप्ट कर सकें। I'll give you another example के last year the bills in Pakistan for electricity peaked so much that it went out of people's budgets, especially the farmers who were in their fields and had to run their tube wells. एक ज़माने में there used to be fixed charges, but now they started charging the tube well on commercial rates, so they could not pay for it. But they quickly found a solution which is there out in the market, which is to turn towards solar tube wells. And I was surprised. I met the energy minister yesterday, and he was telling me that just in 1 year, about 2,500 megawatts of solar capacity has been added to Pakistan. And they were fearing that every year, this is going to be at least 2,500 more. So, they were fearing it because they're losing precious customers from the market. They don't have the customers left anymore to sell out in the market. But what is happening is that we are moving towards a green energy source, which is making economic sense because there is a solution in the market. So I think if the private sector can come, maybe private sector has played a big role. Now in each village, you have a sort of person who can put up your solar plant, put up your solar tube well, and they come out with solutions. Similarly, on drip irrigation, again, government gave an incentive for taking 80% of the cost of the drip irrigation system. There was a project, and the uptake was tremendous. People shifted immediately towards a drip irrigation wherever they could get their hands on that subsidy, and they found out that the payback period for whatever investment they were making was less than a year. So again, the solution was provided, and people quickly latched onto it. बहैसियत कौम, I think हमारी कौम की जो strength है वो ये कि we know how to cope with crisis. We are also a country and a nation कि जब सर पे पड़ती है तो तब हम काम करते हैं, लेकिन जब सर पे पड़े तो अगर solution हो तो हम फौरन उसको अपटेक कर लेते हैं. I'll just share a very good example कि I was at IUCN for 8 years, the vice president of IUCN, and my president was a Chinese, he was an ex-minister, economics minister. So we worked very closely. And I saw that, he used to plan like it's nobody's business. He used to plan for every eventuality 20 years down the line. And he used to do what if analysis, कि ये नहीं होगा, तो ये होगा, वो होगा. And so every step that he took, he had planned for it. On the other side, हमारी जो साइकी है वो ये कि we don't plan properly, लेकिन अगर कोई चीज़ ऐसी आ जाए जो कि out of the box है, तो we can do it very quickly. But अगर out of the box उस Chinese के साथ जो मैंने देखा, जब out of the box कोई चीज़ आती थी, तो they used to just freeze because they didn't know what to do. So I think we should play on our strengths, and climate change is presenting us with opportunities as well as challenges which are there. And like you said, we have to wake up and adjust ourselves quickly to those challenges. But आपने जो question किया, I think इसमें private sector का वहाँ पे जाना बहुत ज़रूरी है, ताकि जो private sector के बहुत सारे solutions ऐसे हैं जो कि हमें यहाँ पे नहीं पता लगते, वो COP meetings के बाद आपको पता लगते हैं. तो वो partnership अगर बन जाए, तो I think it can be very useful for Pakistan.
Thank you very much, Amin Aslam साहब. We hope कि इस साल private sector की वहाँ पे जो engagement है वो मीनिंगफुल हो, ताकि हम वाकई में कुछ ऐसे सॉल्यूशंस लेकर आए, इन्वेस्टमेंट्स लेकर आए. वहाँ बायलैटरल मीटिंग्स हो रही होती हैं जो पाकिस्तान को के लिए फायदेमंद हो. डॉक्टर आदिल नजम, अब तो सर पे पड़ गई हमारे लेकिन सॉल्यूशंस हैं. आप लिविंग इंडस पे भी आपने वो पूरा डॉक्यूमेंट बनाया, और उसका पर्पस ये कि दरियाए सिंध हमें सपोर्ट करता रहा है इतनी सदियों से, क्या अगली 1 सदी में सपोर्ट करेगा कि नहीं? क्योंकि हम तो उसका मतलब क्लाइमेट चेंज ऐसा है, हम करें ना करें वो सूख जाएगा, कुछ भी हो सकता है. तो हमें सस्टेन करना है. हमारा एग्रीकल्चर डिपेंडेंट ही दरियाए सिंध पर है, उसकी ट्रिब्यूटरीज पर है, रिवर्स पर है. हमारा रिवर सिस्टम किसी दौर में बेहतरीन रिवर सिस्टम था. अब वो चीज़ नहीं है. कोर्स बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स होते हैं, लेकिन आप मुझे बताएं, ये जो सोल्यूशन है, ये पेप्सी भी बता रहे हैं, अमीन असलम साहब ने भी शेयर किया, और भी एमएनसीज हैं सोल्यूशंस बताते हैं. आप मुझे बताएं क्या ऐसा करें कि यही सोल्यूशंस अगर हम स्केल करना शुरू कर दें, ऐसी क्या स्ट्रैटेजी यूज करें कि हम यही सोल्यूशन स्केल कर लें और हम अडेप्ट कर लें या रेजिलियंस बिल्डिंग में कुछ कंट्रीब्यूट कर जाएं? आपकी क्या टेक है इस पे?
नहीं, थैंक यू ज़ैनब. अगर मैं इतना अक्लमंद होता कि मेरे पास इस सवाल का जवाब होता तो मैं इधर थोड़ी बैठा होता कि मेरे पास सारे सोल्यूशन होते. लेकिन थैंक यू फॉर आस्किंग दैट क्वेश्चन, स्पेशली बिकॉज यू गिव मी द अपॉर्चुनिटी टू एक्चुअली थैंक मलिक अमीन असलम. आपने लिविंग इंडस का जिक्र किया, एंड इट्स कम अप अ नंबर ऑफ टाइम्स हियर. आई वाज एट अनदर कॉन्फ्रेंस, एंड आई एम फील वेरी गुड कि इट कीप्स कमिंग अप, बट इट वुड नॉट हैव हैपेंड विदाउट सॉर्ट ऑफ मलिक अमीन असलम calling me and actually forcing me कि जी तुमने करना है. After having sort of being very reluctant to it, and the vision came from there. So I do want to. Indus अभी भी वैसे ही है. सिंध को, दरिया सिंध को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ा, फर्क हमें पड़ा, right? दरिया अभी भी जो है वो बड़ा तगड़ा है. So there are solutions, and I like the idea which was just mentioned. What Malik Amin Aslam was saying about driving on GT road. I think it's a very good metaphor. कि आपको एक किस्म की एक resilience आप में आ जाती है to how to navigate, and that is the जुगाड़ economy, if you will. मुझे नहीं पता adaptation की क्या उर्दू है जी. मिनिस्ट्री ने निकाली adaptation की उर्दू? अगर नहीं निकाली तो हम आज फैसला कर लेते हैं कि adaptation का मतलब है जुगाड़.
ये रिकमेंडेशन आ गई.
ये रेजोल्यूशन पास कर दो. Because in a way that is what adaptation है. Adaptation ये है कि एक मसला होता है जिसके लिए आप रेडी नहीं होते, उसके लिए आपको अडेप्ट करना होता है. वो बेसिकली वही जुगाड़ होता है जो आपका रिक्शा वाला, जब मेरे पास उधर उमर बैठा हुआ मेरे साथ, हम यूनिवर्सिटी में साथ होते थे, होंडा 70 होता था, उसके जब तेल खत्म हो जाता था उसको लटा देता तो वो आपको 3 मील और दे देता था until you can get to the gas station. right? So the point but I'm making a serious point, right? Where does adaptation come from? Either adaptation will come from borrowing from someone else, which is what I was talking about yesterday, where many things will not work, or it will come from Jugaad by understanding your system. Jugaad is a technical concept. You understand your system to figure out the opportunities that you can use to solve an unforeseen problem that has come up. Now, in some ways, that is adaptation. That's one point I think we can take very positively from this. The other, because you're talking about private, public, and market, and so on and so forth. So, you know, in my WWF capacity, I'm not speaking in that capacity. We tend to work with a lot of companies, and it's a very central part of what we do. If you want large scale change, then you want large scale actors. That is the logic of why you work with government. That is the logic of why you work with companies. As civil society, I can come up with ideas. As a think tank, you can come up with ideas. But if we want large scale change, then we need actors that work on the large scale. In honesty, and Steve, I hope we are friends, at COP, I want to focus on government. I actually sometimes worry about that. COP is an instrument of international government policy. And somehow, by a lot of us, civil society being there, now lots of other actors are there, I think we dilute its essential purpose. My focus ought to be on that. So very briefly, in 1997, I wrote a paper, which is actually one of my most cited papers. It was called Prince, Merchant, and Citizen. And essentially, it said that there are only three institutions in the world. The prince, meaning government, jiski interest is only stability. It does many things, but ultimately, all government everywhere, its purpose is to give social stability. The merchant, meaning business, whose principal purpose is profit. Right? So we should acknowledge that. The reason Lay's does potatoes is because उनको पता है कि consumer demands a certain type of potato. वो climate की वजह से नहीं कर रहे, climate का भी फायदा हो रहा है. Right? We should acknowledge that. And citizen, whose purpose is the societal interest. Right? So the reason I say that is कि जब हम market solution कहते हैं, I'll be very brief. So since yesterday, because that's the theme of this conference, we talk a lot about private, public, which is a fine word. Lekin we talk a lot about market. What Malik Amin Aslam just did was he gave us a market solution that did not have anything to do with companies. ये जो solar panel आए हैं, ये companies नहीं लाई, ये consumer लाया. So we forget that the market is composed of private sector, which is one thing, and a much bigger thing, which is called the consumer. So it is not the first time ये जो solar panel and water, इसका एक problem भी है कि अगर वो पानी free हो जाएगा तो फिर मैं पानी निकालता रहूं more than I need. लेकिन इससे पहले many of you would remember कि पाकिस्तान में CNG गैस पे गाड़ियां चलनी शुरू हो गई थी. That was exactly the same story. वो बर्शेन की वजह से नहीं आया था, वो pumps की वजह से नहीं आया था. Petrol price was too high. So people like my father just couldn't afford it. So the consumer came up with a solution. The reason I'm saying is do not underestimate the power of the consumer in forcing better behavior from government, which we do through voting, or forcing better behavior from corporate sector, which we do by market demand. Right? It is the consumer who says कि यार मुझे ये बताओ ये बोतल जाएगी कब आना. Right? Tell me where it will end up. The consumer says, Lay's potato, I expect you as a global company to have these social standards. So the point I'm making is that let us not simplistically sort of remove our responsibility. So we as consumers, चाहे वो मैं एक और example देता हूँ, and someone mentioned this today and I thought it was brilliant. हम again, because of the people sitting here, we are very fond of saying कि जी climate policy, environment policy तब तक नहीं होगी जब तक finance minister नहीं आएंगे, right? क्योंकि वो खुदा लाइन नहीं है, वो बेहतर है, so on so forth. हमें बड़ा शौक है ये कहने का कि जी फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर के बगैर कुछ नहीं होगा या एनर्जी मिनिस्टर के बगैर कुछ नहीं होगा. We are today living through one of the greatest technological transformations of a century, which is the energy transformation to renewables. Right? आपकी EV and so on and so forth. और उसमें ये ड्रोन हम पे ट्राई करने आ रहा है. उस EV revolution में happened without any finance ministry. In fact, if the finance or energy ministers, transport ministers were there, it might not have happened. So the renewable transformation that we are seeing, which I think is real, the point I'm making is, let us not underestimate the role of the consumer in the market. अगर आप सिर्फ ये करेंगे कि out of goodwill कंपनियां सिर्फ कुछ करेंगी, तो Haseeb will not have the push that he needs.
Thank you so much. मिस खालदा, मैं आपके पास आऊंगी लास्ट उसके लिए, क्योंकि आप गवर्नमेंट हैं यहाँ पे. हसीब, लेट्स जस्ट कम टू द पॉइंट नाउ. क्या प्राइवेट सेक्टर की क्या डिमांड है फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट? हमें क्लाइमेट एक्शन चाहिए, हमें सोल्यूशन चाहिए अपने लोकल कम्युनिटीज के लिए. आपकी क्या डायरेक्ट डिमांड है फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट? दिस इज द फोरम, दिस इज द प्लेटफॉर्म,
Sure.
प्लीज.
No, thank you, Zainab. देखिए, what we, before I directly answer to your question, what we need to understand is that there are multiple solutions which are possible. There are multiple solutions which are available. And I want to talk about a few of them before I come to this answer. We've discussed enough why there's a need. The solution that PepsiCo thinks is possible for us is our holistic approach towards sustainability, and we call it PepsiCo Positive. PepsiCo Positive is a culmination of three key pillars, which is positive agriculture, positive value chain, and positive choices. And that covers our entire value chain when we come to it. I'll not dwell into the details of the other two, but in positive agriculture, the biggest thing that we have understood so far is that regenerative agriculture practices are key. Soil health being one of the most important issues in the country right now. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on soil health. To begin with, what we have done with our partners is that we have started with testing the soil first, and then adding things in order to improve the soil organic matter. Just to give you perspective, in Pakistan, our soil organic matters are less than 0.5%, which generally in Europe or Australia or countries like those, it is close to 5 to 7%. Now, in very layman terms, that's the health of the soil. Whatever comes out of the soil will also be that amount of healthy, and the yield, which Dr. Adil was mentioning. If the soil is not strong enough, it will not be able to produce what it is supposed to produce. With the extensive cropping coming in, and that's our need, we need to have food security in the system. The solution is to give it back to the soil, regenerate the soil. And what we have done is that we have added, we are doing pilots on biochar, which is one of the solutions. There's a debate that it is scalable or not. We are trying our best to make it scalable. And it is one of the solutions of crop residues also being sorted as well. The other thing is the compost. I think, again, compost makes a lot of sense. There's certain pilots that we have run, and we see there's a lot of improvement in terms of productivity, optimized yields coming out of it. Similarly, when it comes to the overall biodiversity of the area, now it's a very broad topic, and it's a very, in itself, requires a lot of time, and I'll not spend a lot of time, but we are working with our farming partners to ensure that we bring back or improve the biodiversity that was disturbed to begin with while we started cultivating those lands. And there are multiple ways to do that. And finally, the GHG emission part. We're talking about solar, but then there's a lot of fertilizer possibilities as well that we're working with. Now, I think coming back to the question that you posed, the solution is there with the farmer. It's there on the ground. What we need to do is that we need to connect the two. As Dr. Saab also mentioned, the consumer connection with the source, and the source is farming. There's a lot of work that needs to happen there. There are right now policies which at times make it difficult for organizations like us to bring in varieties. So for example, right now, in order to bring in one variety in Pakistan, it's a minimum 5 years process. Now we understand there are certain requirements and regulations over there, but those things can be streamlined and that can help organizations like us to improve that lead time and then further improve on the type of varieties which are available by years of research of R&D, which was done in US, which is our principal organization. That is one of the things. And the second thing is, I think, with a lot of excess available in the market, there's a need to appreciate the exports possibility from Pakistan, specifically on agriculture. As Dr. Saab mentioned, and initially Malik Saab also mentioned, if potato as a crop is becoming excess, ideally it should be picked up and sent to a market where there is need. And in order to do that, there's so many regulations before somebody is able to export something out of Pakistan, especially agriculture commodity, because it is perishable. So a perishable commodity has its own issues when it comes to exports. So I think these two big things can solve a lot of things for the entire community.
Thank you so much, Haseeb. Madam Khalda, आपके सामने हमने रख दी है अपनी बात कि एक्सपोर्ट करना है अगर हम लोकली सोर्स कर रहे हैं एंड हम सपोर्ट करना चाह रहे हैं यहाँ पे रेगुलेशंस बहुत ज़्यादा है. सेकेंडली, क्लाइमेट एक्शन की रेगुलेशंस हमारे मुल्क में तो उस तरह से शायद स्ट्रिंजेंट नहीं है, लेकिन अब कुछ ग्लोबल रेगुलेशंस भी आती जा रही हैं जिसके लिए हम शायद तैयार नहीं हैं अभी. अगर अभी हम अपनी लोकल रेगुलेशंस में ही उस चीज़ों को फुलफिल नहीं कर पा रहे जो कि रिक्वायर्ड हैं, तो ग्लोबली अगर हम लेट्स से एक्सपोर्ट स्टार्ट करते हैं, यूरोपियन यूनियन सीबैम ला रहे हैं, पाकिस्तान अभी अपनी कार्बन प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी भी शायद क्या पता फ्रेमवर्क शेयर कर रहा हो कॉप पे, और उसके बाद भी सीबैम आ रहे हैं, कल को अमेरिका का अपना आ जाएगा, चाइना का अपना आ जाएगा, तो एक्सपोर्टर तो यहाँ पे एक्सपोर्टर क्या सभी फंस जाएंगे, प्राइवेट सेक्टर फंस जाएगा लिटरली. सो किस तरह से मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज कोऑर्डिनेशन कर रही है बाकी मिनिस्ट्रीज के साथ और इस चीज को स्ट्रीमलाइन कर रही है कि हम प्रोविंशियल और फेडरल लेवल पे अलाइन हो कि फॉर क्लाइमेट एक्शन वी नीड टू ब्रिंग ऑल स्टेक होल्डर्स ऑन बोर्ड, उनकी कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग, नॉलेज ट्रांसफर सब हमारी जिम्मेदारी है. इस पे आपका क्या स्टांस है? और वो लास्ट स्टांस होगा, द नेल इन द कॉफिन, हमें वो लास्ट उसको रैप अप करना है जो आपकी तरफ से स्टांस आ रहा है. थैंक यू.
Right, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. A very interesting discussion, or it is very close to home also, right? जब आप climate की बात करते हैं, तो climate एक standalone चीज नहीं है. Climate change is not a standalone thing. Climate policy is not a standalone thing. आपकी trade policy, आपकी economy, आपकी social protection, and everything under the sun, it is somehow the other related to climate change. ठीक है, तो अभी हसीब ने exports की बात की. I'm not from Ministry of Commerce, लेकिन I worked there. I know processes can be tedious. There are certain requirements, और उसमें for instance a quarantine की requirement होती है, if I'm not mistaken. Now this is not the MOC's point of view, just out of my previous knowledge. So you see, we are signatories to so many different conventions. उसमें trades की भी हैं, environment की भी हैं. So when we ratify those or when we become a party to those, तो कुछ requirements होती हैं जो हमने बहरहाल fulfill करनी है, right? अब जब हम उसमें जाते हैं, then how much prep we have done, how much prepared we are, that is an ongoing thing. आप one fine morning ये नहीं कह सकते कि okay fine we are ready, so we are going to ratify this, right? For example, Pakistan is a part of GSP Plus as well, right? उसमें there is a whole hoard of policies, जिसमें human rights की भी हैं, climate की है, then your trade policy. So you have to follow certain of the milestones, ठीक है, and then you get the concessions at the end. So that is that part of the question answered. अब रहेगी बात line ministries की coordination में. So you see, environment is a devolved subject. It is no longer the Ministry of Climate Change that is holding all the reins. So of course, very right. we need to take the provinces on board, और ऐसा होता है, ऐसा हो रहा है. To give you an example, Abhi, you mentioned about the carbon guidelines, or I'm working on this, and incidentally, I'm also getting phone calls from my office because I have to go back and do work on it. So there was this long and tedious process of consultations. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि federal government जो है, ये federal ministry है, वो अपने तौर पे सारे काम कर रही है. That is not even possible. ठीक है? So that is one thing. And then, yes, are we ready to implement those policies? Again, I'll go back to my first point. I can say for once that I cannot get up one morning as a joint secretary and tell my secretary that, okay, sir or madam, this is it. We are all ready for it. Just go ahead. ऐसा नहीं होता, कभी भी नहीं होता. It never happens with any of the policies. Yes, there are hurdles, there are challenges, and then you see, we improve as we go along. हमने climate change policy बनाई, उसमें हमने कहा हमने climate change authority एक बनानी है. That came in 2017, और authority अब बनी है, ठीक है? Then we are establishing a climate change fund. So you see, these are incremental steps. The important thing is कि we should not lose hope. हमें चलते रहना चाहिए, and as we go forward, we need to improvise. We need to and we need to be aligned with the global requirements. आप silos में नहीं चल सकते. Not in climate change, not in any other field. So from a government's perspective, I would say the policies are there in place and they're being implemented also. Yes, there are lacunas, there may be some shortfalls as well. लेकिन हमारा काम ये है कि we keep on working on them. And then coming back, you see, हमारा clientele कौन है? The Ministry of Climate Change का clientele है your public. Or in other words, like अगर हम market sense में बात करें तो the consumer. So you see, sitting in the government, the objective is to how to protect your public, your clientele, your consumer, because you see, while devising a policy or designing a policy, you have to take that into account. Like for example, अगर दुनिया आपको कहती है कि coal बहुत dangerous है, उसके emissions, blah 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 blah, so इसको खत्म कर दें. Can we do that? Do we have the capacity? Do we मतलब आज हम coal plants अपने बंद कर दें, so will we have the capacity to keep our things running? नहीं है. So we have to work on that. But again, we'll go in an incremental manner. And COP was mentioned here. And we are leaving for the COP, inshallah, next week. उसमें public-private partnership की आपने बात की. We have lots of investors. अभी carbon markets जो है, they are the upcoming thing. उसमें there are lots of bilaterals lined up and lots of investors lined up in different countries. So this is how policies work. So I guess I've answered all your questions.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Kalda. I think हम लोग इस ये forum जो है, जहाँ हमारे पास public private sector experts यहाँ बैठे हैं और यहाँ जो बात हुई है, I'm sure कि ये debate initiate हुई है और ये आगे चलेगी. Public sector willing है private sector को support करने के लिए. SDPI being a think tank, we are acting as a bridge to connect not just these two but also with development partners, civil society organizations and academia. I think the key recommendation from here is कि बहुत अच्छा काम हम silos में कर रहे हैं, हमें सिर्फ उसको integrate करना है. Private sector, government, civil societies, humanitarian organizations सब काम कर रहे हैं. But climate is a national development agenda now. मैं सही कह रही हूँ? National development agenda है ना मैम? प्रायोरिटी है. असल में थोड़ा सा इशू ये है कि हम लोगों पे जब तक डंडा नहीं पड़ता हम लोग सीधे नहीं होते. आपने क्लाइमेट चेंज अथॉरिटी की बात की तो वो भी इतना अरसा इसलिए लग गया आई थिंक बनने में. लेकिन हमारी पॉलिसीज बहुत अच्छी लिखी हुई हैं. अगर हम लोग क्लाइमेट को पर्सनल इशू नहीं जब तक बनाएंगे तब तक एक्शन नहीं लिया जा सकता. You have to make it personal. आप as a responsible citizen उसको भी छोड़ दें. आपकी आने वाली नस्ल क्या इस्लामाबाद में रहते हैं, मरी में अब देख लें हालात क्या हो गए, जंगलात कट गए, वेदर चेंज हो गया. क्या आने वाली नस्ल के लिए यहाँ पे बचेगी, कोई ग्रीनरी रह जाएगी? क्या हम लोग ये जो पानी है ये नेचर एंजॉय करने जाते हैं, नॉर्थ में जाते हैं, क्या वो जा सकेंगे? नहीं जा सकेंगे. एक्सट्रीम हीट हमारे जब बॉडी सस्टेन नहीं कर सकती 35 डिग्री सेल्सियस से ऊपर का टेम्परेचर. आप लोग जब ट्रैवल करते हैं शदीद गर्मी में, आपकी फिजिकली क्या चेंजेस आ रहे होते हैं, नेक्स्ट अनबॉर्न बेबीज जो हैं उन पे क्या चेंजेस आ रहे होते हैं. इट्स अ वेल डॉक्यूमेंटेड फैक्ट. वी नीड टू टेक इट सीरियसली. ये ब्रेकडाउन की सिचुएशन है. Not everything is doom and gloom, but still अभी एक्ट नहीं किया तो हमारा फ्यूचर नहीं है. Climate change is a reality and it's happening. This is my message as a moderator. मेरा कोई सेशन इतना एक्सटेंडेड नहीं हुआ. रीजन बीइंग हमने थोड़ा लेट स्टार्ट किया था. I really wanted tangible policy recommendations from this session because I believe agriculture and the role of private sector is extremely important when we are talking about agriculture and sustainable development. And I'm sure यहाँ से जो recommendations होंगी वो यहाँ से सारे stakeholders लेकर जाएंगे. And not just COP एक forum है. हम लोग उसको implement करने के लिए भी कुछ ना कुछ कहीं ना कहीं किसी ना किसी हद तक कोशिश जरूर करेंगे. With a positive message, thank you so much everyone. Thank you PepsiCo for bringing us all together for this important dialogue. Thank you all participants. यहाँ पे ये प्लेनरी खत्म हो गई. आई नो आप लोग वेट कर रहे हैं. म्यूजिकल इवनिंग बिल्कुल हो रही है, यहीं पर हो रही है और हमें लीड सिंगर ज्वाइन कर रहे होंगे. आप लोगों के लिए यहाँ पे हमने ऑर्गेनाइज किया है. तो हम स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं वो विद दिस के ठीक है क्लाइमेट चेंज हो रहा है लेकिन कोई हर्ज नहीं अगर हम थोड़ा सा फन कर ले ये देखते हुए कि हमें एक्शन लेना है. सो थैंक यू एवरीवन. थैंक यू फॉर योर टाइम.
Thank you so much. Wonderful meeting you in person. Thank you so much.